Good morning. Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Sarah Metcalf, and I will be leading this service, the last one of our lay-led summer. We are a congregation in a tradition of liberal faith and committed social action. We uphold the principles and values of our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we strive to be a community where all are welcomed and included, without regard to age, race or background, sexual orientation, gender identity, or abilities. If you are new and would like to receive our weekly email news bulletin, please send an email to our office@uunorthampton.org. This will be my 12th annual poetry service on Labor Day weekend. I've given it the title, The Fierce Suspension of Now. I'm always indebted to my fellow readers, this year Joanna Brown and Janet Spongberg, and to my partner, Britt Alberton, for their invaluable help and company. This year I'm additionally indebted to Kathy Lilly and Rebecca Smith for their technical support. Next week, we will resume our regular services with Reverend Janet Bush and Jessica Harwood and introduce our new Minister of Music, Lemmy Gertowski. The service, Mingled Waters and Mingled Stories, will be an online version of our traditional water ceremony. On September 20th at 4 p.m., please join us for our next Live from the Sanctuary concert, featuring soprano Christine Bukes and pianist Dana Mabin. As always, donations will be split between the musicians and our Sanctuary Fund that helps support Irita and her family. After the service, we invite you to stay for social hour, where we'll put you. To ensure that our Zoom meetings go smoothly, we ask that you turn off your video until social hour by clicking on Stop Video on the bottom of your screen. Our helpers may do this for you. We invite people to use the chat to say hi to everyone during the community greeting. Otherwise, we ask that you use the chat only for private messages so that it does not distract others. We'll now hear the prelude, arranged and performed by Jean-Baptiste. A Juilliard-trained jazz and classical musician, he may be familiar to you as the band leader on Stephen Colbert's The Late Show. Please listen to hear how, against the familiar melody of the Star-Spangled Banner, he sets in the bass line, the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. The opening words are the poem Reunion by Charles Wright. Already one day has detached itself from all the rest up ahead. It has my photograph in its soft pocket. It wants to carry my breath into the past in its bag of wind. I write poems to untie myself, to do penance and disappear through the upper right-hand corner of things, to say grace.
Good morning. I'll take a moment to light the chalice and then invite you to say the words with me to accompany its lighting. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Now let's sing Old Hundredth together.
Songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung. Through every land, by every tongue. They taught us all and so serve our esperanza in amor. Their guiding letter cantanam. They cannot terra
It's time for our community greeting. I'm so happy to see you all here this morning. Please turn on your video while keeping yourself muted and type a message to everyone in chat. I will read as many of the messages as I can. Happy Labor Day from Catherine Hicks. Hello with all love from Michael. Hello to everyone, especially to guests and new attendees from Joanna Brown and from Joan O'Brien. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sarah and Britt. From Stephen Kramer, life is a gift. Love, Teresa and Steve. From Bill Diamond to everyone, so glad to see everyone this beautiful day. Harriet and Bill. From Claire to everyone, so good to be here. From Patty Coden, good morning on this lovely day to all you lovely people. From Sarah's iPad, happy to see you all here. And Georgia, from Georgia, wonderful to be here. We have missed you all. From Kit, this is such a beautiful day. I hope you can all enjoy it. Sally Weiss, love being with all of you. Jean Crow, hello everyone, it's good to be here. Allison Bowen, Sarah, I love your service already, and every year, good morning all. And from Janet Spongberg, the chalice lighting was actual, not virtual. I see the chat quieting down, so it's time to return to our service. Please turn off your videos, otherwise we'll do it for you. If you switch to gallery view, you might want to return to speaker view. And now we'll have a social justice minute from Joanna Brown.
Good morning. I've participated in 3 UU small groups in the last 2 years. We talk about a different theme each time we meet. For example, compassion or gratitude or solitude. Each online gathering is an opportunity to honestly share our thoughts and stories and listen with respect and caring for each other. And if you don't want to talk, That's okay too. I always come away feeling grateful for my group members. In this time of a pandemic, being a part of a UU small online group gives me inspiration and connection. If this appeals to you, please sign up when you see the small group information in the Sunday Times newsletter.
Please join us in singing.
Across the storm, and may your fortune never bright. Among his friends may the Lord and rain go by. My faith is strong, my wrath is well. Is in the rattling of the storm, is all the world would show, will keep you warm. He shall walk softly through these rooms, touch their lips with holy wine.
I've called this service The Fierce Suspension of Now, a play on Martin Luther King's fierce urgency of now. But I'm not sure suspension is really the best word for this long moment. I wanted to describe the odd immobility we feel, unable to move freely and unmasked through the world, but also our dread of what will happen next as our society's fault lines deepen and widen. There is violence in the atmosphere, racing over the Midwest, flattening crops and houses, and incinerating the West with fires so fierce they take the form of tornadoes. There is violence in the streets, heart-wrenching and outrageous. There is a collapse of even lip service to democracy. There are empty storefronts and empty bank accounts. It's very hard to navigate this instability. A recent New Yorker cartoon was titled "The New Stock Phrases." How are you has become, how are you holding up? Fine, thanks has become, hanging in there. Bye has become, stay safe. This isn't really funny, but I had to laugh because I say these things. We all say these things. We're saying, I'm not fine, and I know you are not fine either. But I feel the need for the cathartic relief of some more precise words. The poems we'll read today are ones I thought offered that relief. The first set is loosely about quarantine, about silence, disorientation, fear of death, many deaths, and endless board games. Some of these poems long predate our experience, but they speak to us. Keats wrote about his fear of death in 1818, presciently, as it turned out. 3 years later, he died of tuberculosis at the age of 25. Whitman's poem was published in 1871 and shows us how the Civil War left him shaken in his confidence in our country. One critic wrote that he began to experience the world as an ever-shifting quicksand of uncertainty and unmeaning. That sounds familiar. Neruda's beautiful meditation on silence was written in the 1950s, a while back, but modern enough to understand the oppression of noise. Ashbery died in 2017, before there was a pandemic, but he seems to have anticipated its isolation. Fleda Brown's poem was written in 2019, pre-COVID, but already feeling the failure of our winner-take-all economy expressed on the Monopoly board. And then there's the Ode to Patrick Kearns. This poem was published in The New Yorker just last month. The Leo F. Kearns Funeral Home in Queens has been in business for 120 years. Coronavirus overwhelmed them with more deaths than they'd seen during World War I, the 1918 flu epidemic, World War II, or 9/11. There's an extraordinary Vanity Fair article about how this family business struggled to meet what they felt as their obligation to meaningfully lay to rest hundreds and hundreds of people. The poet, Diane Mehta, walks through Central Park hearing ambulance sirens all around her and tries to do the same.
The first poem this morning is by Pablo Neruda. It's called Keeping Quiet. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it's about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
This Room by John Ashbery. The room I entered was a dream of this room. Surely all those feet on the sofa were mine. The oval portrait of a dog was me at an early age. Something shimmers, something is hushed up. We had macaroni for lunch every day except Sunday, when a small quail was induced to be served to us. Why do I tell you these things? You are not even here.
The next one is called Year That Trembled and Reeled Beneath Me, and it's by Walt Whitman. Year that trembled and reeled beneath me, your summer wind was warm enough, yet the air I breathed froze me. A thick gloom fell through the sunshine and darkened me. Must I change my triumphant songs? Said I to myself. Must I indeed learn to chant the cold dirges of the baffled and sullen hymns of defeat?
Ode to Patrick Kearns, funeral director of the Leo F. Kearns Funeral Home in Queens, by Diane Mehta. By blood, we go into the fabric of what once felt hymnal at worst. We are tuned to higher pitches now, in languages invented, not imagined rites of spring, but last rites in strange establishments. Trucks collect the dead and roll uptown to bury in a potter's field corpses we knew and loved, their long, solemn graves together. Better here than bodies shelved or stacks of flesh shipped out of state to cremate or left to rot. We formalized obituaries. She was first to graduate. He escaped. She was a composer. He, though deaf, was a composer too. We pray alone to keep their souls alive. Until this month, we lived in adverbs, dressed for rainshine half the time, and not according to the daily toll, not this running tally at scale in every borough. Our minds are lost to gravity again. By gravity we live. We move from cells to fingers, toes. Our footprint, handprint, fingerprint alone identifies us as one person in this widening morgue. You men and women of generations ever upward, we say now, if Whitman could, he'd hold us dear. Our arms, our feet, our hands, our fingerprinted fingers wrapped in his. Myself disintegrated, everyone disintegrated, yet part of the scheme. And renew us with varied meanings, rebellious curiosities. I will miss him in my future if it is me. And in 20 years or 100 years, history will ask, how did we wear on with so much weeping? It was never so beautiful as this April in the park, with yellow oaks deliriously blooming despite the trill of siren after siren to the east. We ignored it. Walking west or north, southeast, any which way someone else wasn't. Sunlight far flung itself sideways across the arms up oaks and Olmsted slopes. Oh, I was rapt, convinced this surreal afternoon was magic cast in lavender and grass green thickening itself, cardinals flying straight up into that vanishing we are all doing now, minding our eternities. Transcendent limbo, this. But cherish the eclipse, our orbit moving over our polyphonic voices in fugue-walking choices, prelude to nothing, yes, nothing, because when the wind is all C major, unraveling in D minor, we are in the neurobeat of wondering who will stay today and who departs tomorrow. But here are my children, my coffin, my love. It doesn't matter what color the coffin is or that we swooned too long in idioms. We broke on counterpoint, and this is where it leads. I swear this is not my story. On our tombstones, what do we see? What we love most is always free and far irrational, fine with me. What is true today, if not my teeth, my bones, my nothingness? Is it near? I must endear myself. I'll think, oh, it wasn't me. I was just a sentence after all. But my sentence, was it wrong? I am young to be this old, too old to be that young. When we are all accounted for, someone will surely say, unevenly I conclude we count facts because we cannot lose our minds in facts. We lose them in vivid air, thousands elsewhere.
This is John Keats's poem, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love. Then, on the shore of the wide world, I stand alone and think till love and fame to nothingness do sink.
Afternoons at the Lake by Fleda Brown. I would rather be trapped in an attic with rats than play Monopoly all the afternoons it takes to lose the last of my money to the already super rich 1% grandchild, to line up cheap green houses on my low rent Baltic and Mediterranean avenues in a futile attempt to collect enough to survive the next round of rent on Boardwalk or Park Place, to feel pitiful gratitude when I receive for services $25. Everything will be gone, save the smallest denominations. The Asian crayfish will overrun the native, the autumn olive will proliferate, the tallest thing will grow taller, will be layered with gold, will turn to gold, will harden its gold heart. It will squander, jet, pocket, dole, win past wanting to win, dig the mine shaft, the ore, eat up the hillside, the birds, the whales, crack the foundations of houses, force the defaulters into the street. Dice will land as they will cause the tiny car to bounce happily from St. James Place to Indiana Avenue, a galaxy of gobble, will enable the placement of flamboyant hotels on the coast where waters wash with exquisite music shoreward, all of it owned by the God who dwells inside the winning, who has not said otherwise yet, who owns free parking and jail, who owns the treeless board, the classy neighborhoods as well as the ones with the rats and smashed out windows. The murderous scrawl of languages on walls, the smiling God holding the center with top hat and cane. As at last I step out on the dock with my coffee and say to myself the lines where Keats rhymes think with nothingness do sink. We will now join in singing the hymn, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in thine heart all the stirrings of compassion. Love in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the land, giving life the shape of justice. Praise hold me close, bring set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The next set of poems is about, I guess I have to say, America. They are all quite contemporary. The first poem is one of mine, in which I attempted to borrow the lacerating brevity of Emily Dickinson and even her dashes. I wrote this some years ago, but have tweaked a few words for this occasion. Katha Pollitt is so well known as a feminist essayist, you may not know she's also a poet. Her poem starts out so innocently, but ends with a dark twist. And it's interesting that two of the next poems, Britt, your camera's not on me. Two of the next poems explicitly say that they know that in order to get us to face the truth about our country, they must disguise it. Richard Wilbur's poem was written in 1959, so it can't have been intended as a warning about climate change, but he evokes a world in which trees die and rivers, like Xanthus, catch on fire. He thinks such a warning would be heeded. Adrienne Rich also feels she must be a sneaky Cassandra. Frank Bedart writes about his hometown, Bakersfield, California, from 2017, well into the Trump administration. Claudia Rankine was among the poets asked by the New York Times to compose a poem for this moment in history. Her poem, Weather, was published in June. Emily in Black. Horror's not exotic. No genre magazine is needed to preserve it. The film slips off the screen. It infiltrates the ether and chatters from the box. Make me, can't you, doctor, numb to its effects? The shadow on the X-ray, the guns in the garage, the counterfeit of honor cloaked in mad applause. Something's in the garden, blackened, broken-winged, and cinders in the oven, and tear gas on the wind. Something epidemic, resistant to a cure. My cells for its concealment, my home, its theater.
Integer Vitae by Katha Pollitt. The beautiful gray dog loping across the lawn all afternoon for the sheer joy of summertime. Bees at their balm. The dragonfly asleep on a raspberry leaf. That's how we'd live if living were enough. Innocent, single-hearted, like the morning dove who's called his mate in the cool dawn from one pine for 1,000 years. These do not wake in tears, nor does deception drive them down to the blue pond, where the beaver, prince of chaos, who appeared alone as if from nowhere, is tirelessly constructing his dark palace of many rooms.
Advice to a Prophet by Richard Wilbur. When you come, as you soon must, to the streets of our city, mad-eyed from stating the obvious, not proclaiming our fall, but begging us in God's name to have self-pity. Spare us all words of the weapons, their force and range, the long numbers that rocket the mind. Our slow, unreckoning hearts will be left behind, unable to fear what is too strange. Nor shall you scare us with talk of the death of the race. How should we dream of this place without us? The sun mere fire, the leaves untroubled about us, a stone look on a stone's face. Speak of the world's own change. Though we cannot conceive of an undreamt thing, we know to our cost how the dreamt cloud crumbles, the vines are blackened by frost, how the view alters. We could believe, if you told us so, that the white-tailed deer will slip into perfect shade, grown perfectly shy. The lark avoid the reaches of our eye. The jackpine lose its knuckled grip on the cold ledge, and every torrent burn as Xanthus once, its gliding trout stunned in a twinkling. What should we be without the dolphin's ark, the dove's return, these things in which we have seen ourselves and spoken? Ask us, prophet, how we shall call our natures forth when that live tongue is all dispelled, that glass obscured or broken in which we have said the rose of our love and the clean horse of our courage. in which beheld the singing locust of the soul unshelled, and all we mean or wish to mean. Ask us, whether with the worldless rose our hearts shall fail us. Come demanding whether there shall be lofty or long-standing when the bronze annals of the oak tree close.
What Kind of Times Are These? By Adrienne Rich. There's a place between two stands of trees where the grass grows uphill and the old revolutionary road breaks off into shadows near a meeting house abandoned by the persecuted who disappeared into those shadows. I've walked there, picking mushrooms at the edge of dread. But don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here, our country, moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is, the dark mesh of the woods meeting the unmarked strip of light, ghost-ridden crossroads, leaf mold paradise. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, make it disappear. And I won't tell you where it is. So why do I tell you anything? Because you still listen. Because in times like these, to have you listen at all, it's necessary to talk about the trees.
Mourning What We Thought We Were by Frank Bidart. We were born into an amazing experiment. At least we thought we were. We knew there was no escaping human nature. My grandmother taught me that. My own pitiless nature taught me that. But we exist inside an order, I thought, of which history is the mere shadow. Every serious work of art about America has the same theme. America is a great idea. The reality leaves something to be desired. Bakersfield. Marian Anderson, the first great black classical contralto, whom the daughters of the American Revolution would not allow to sing in an unsegregated Constitution Hall, who was then asked by Eleanor Roosevelt to sing at the Lincoln Memorial before thousands, was refused a room at the Padre Hotel, Bakersfield. My mother's disgust as she told me this. It confirmed her judgment about what she could never escape, where she lived out her life. My grandmother's fury when, at the age of 7 or 8, I had eaten at the home of a black friend. The forced camps at the end of the Grapes of Wrath were outside Bakersfield. When I was a kid, Okie was still a common term of casual contempt and derision. So it was up to us, born in Bakersfield, to carve a new history of which history is the mere shadow. To further the history of the Spirit is our work. Therefore, thank you, Lord, whose bounty proceeds by paradox, for showing us we have failed to change. Dark Night, December 1st, 2016. White supremacists, once again in America, are acceptable, respectable. America. Bakersfield was first swamp, then desert. We are sons of the desert who cultivate the top half-inch of soil. And the last poem of this set, Weather, by Claudia Rankine. On a scrap of paper in the archive is written, I have forgotten my umbrella. Turns out in a pandemic, everyone, not just the philosopher, is without. We scramble in the drought of information held back by inside traders. Drop by drop. Face covering? No, yes. Social distancing? 6 feet under for underlying conditions. Black. Just us and the blues kneeling on a neck with the full weight of a man in blue. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. In extremis, I can't breathe gives way to asphyxiation, to giving up this world, and then mama. A call to protest, fire, glass, say their names. White silence equals violence. The violence of, again, a militarized police force tear gassing, bullets ricochet, and civil unrest taking it, burning it down. Whatever contracts keep us social compel us now to disorder the disorder. Peace. We're out to repair the future. There's an umbrella by the door, not for yesterday, but for the weather that's here. I say weather, but I mean a form of governing that deals out death and names it living. I say weather, but I mean a November that won't be held off. This time, nothing, no one forgotten. We are here for the storm that's storming, because what's taken matters. It's now time for our offering. Since March, we have been directing Sunday morning donations to our local COVID-19 relief fund. You may also choose to support the Society directly or contribute to our Sanctuary Fund or IRITA's GoFundMe page. Please use the blue donate button on the homepage of our website. What we do matters, and our generosity is making a difference. The offertory this morning is a haunting song from the musical Hadestown, which recasts the story of Orpheus and Eurydice as the trading away of one's soul to a corporation for profit. It was written in 2006, but since then, its timeliness has only grown sharper.
Why do we build the wall, my children, why do we build the wall?
Why do we build the wall? We build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free.
How does the wall keep us free? My children, how does the wall keep us free?
How does the wall keep us free? The wall keeps out the enemy, and we build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free.
Who do we call the enemy? My children, who do we call the enemy?
Who do we call the enemy? The enemy is poverty, and the wall keeps out the enemy, and we build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free.
Because we have and they have not. My children, because they want what we have got.
Because we have and they have not, because they want what we have got. The enemy is poverty, and the wall keeps out the enemy, and we build the wall to keep us free. That's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free.
What do we have that they should want? My children, my children, what do we have that they should want?
What do we have that they should want? We have a wall to work upon. We have work and they have none.
And our work is never done, my children, my children, and the war is never won. The enemy is poverty, and the wall keeps out the enemy. And we build the wall to keep us free, that's why we build the wall. We build the wall to keep us free.
We build the wall to keep us free.
Now, our final group of poems. We begin with the real Emily Dickinson at her most daunting, reckoning with the overwhelming terror of consciousness itself. But then I offer you some quieter, more philosophical pieces. I admit they're all about death. Pete Nelson thinks about viruses even without digging ferns. Even William Stafford's poem, I think, is about death covertly. He speaks of a meaning to return to a place with his wife when we got rich, which I take to mean the same thing as never. Tony Hoagland's poem is from his final collection, published in 2018, written when he was dying of pancreatic cancer. Lynn Ungar's poem, Pandemic, is of course about death, about how to live in its face. It was originally published on Facebook in 2019, but then found its way into print in the UU world. Yet, like all poems about death, these are also about love. Never Hear That One Is Dead by Emily Dickinson. I never hear that one is dead without the chance of life afresh annihilating me, that mightiest belief, too mighty for the daily mind that, tilling its abyss, had madness, had it once or twice, the yawning consciousness. Beliefs are bandaged like the tongue when terror, were it told in any tone commensurate, would strike us instant dead. I do not know the man so bold he dare in lonely place that awful stranger consciousness deliberately face.
Why You Should Eat Fiddleheads During a Pandemic by Pete Nelson. I went today to a secret woods, not secret really, just off the road, but what lies beyond the guardrail is secret until you go there. Last year this place was underwater into May. Today the mudlands were walkable. Fiddleheads emerging curled and irrumpant, like nature was about to give me the finger. I filled the cloth bag while all around birds proclaimed their territorial rights. This tree, this mate, this year, this day, mine. Heading back, I saw a shape across the stream. A broken tree, I thought, until I realized a deer was watching me. I froze and watched him back. He knew he was safe. 40 yards and a stream between us, but he wasn't taking any chances. I thought of the black and white photographs framed on the walls in my grandfather's study. Men in hats holding fish and dead ducks, and the books my father read as a boy. The ones I'd found in a dusty box in the attic, Jack London, Zane Grey, telling tales of rugged, weathered men in tough spots, and bears and elk, and wolves and mountain lions, and all my middle school book reports entitled Man versus Nature, as if that were the key to all. But I've learned nature is not just deer and mountain lions. It's bacteria and viruses and parasites, the loa worm that goes for the eyes to lay its eggs and make us river blind. It's the smallest things that kill us. Give me a bear to fight, a deer to stare down, across a swollen vernal stream. Give me something I can see, and I like my chances. Then the deer ran off, bounding over slash and windfall. His magnificence absence filled the woods.
Once in the 1940s by William Stafford. We were alone one night on a long road in Montana. This was in winter, a big night, far to the stars. We had hitched, my wife and I, and left our ride at a crossing to go on. Tired and cold, but brave, we trudged along. This, we said, was our life, watched over, allowed to go where we wanted. We said we'd come back sometime when we got rich. We'd leave the others and find a night like this, whatever we had to give, and no matter how far, to be so happy again.
A Walk Around the Property by Tony Hoagland. There are too many characters in this book I'm reading. I can't keep track of them all. How can I care who marries who or what they wear? Nevertheless, each time one disappears, I feel a brief, sharp grief, knowing they will not return. This is how a boat drips out to sea from shore. It gets distracted and detached, pulled this way and that by currents. Eventually, not even pain can guide it home. I will tell you this right now, Cincinnati has not been a great success for me. My allergic reaction to small talk has ensured that I don't get asked to parties anymore. My deep curiosity about other people has gone unslaked. How did Ellen, who hates to be touched, get pregnant? Who is Sam in love with? Is Emily gay? What does my neighbor do at 3 a.m. when his office light is on? Was I wrong to think of life as work? Sing me a song about the world, says the therapist, as he looks out at the thunder and the rain, a little glum about his only half-effective science. He has no cured clients. The moon shines down from the black November sky. The tide rises like a sweeping, white-ruffed arm, erasing all the pages that have come before. The evidence accumulates that nobody is watching over us, and gradually, as the streets and houses drift toward night, all the words inside them close their eyes. The sentences coil up like snakes and sleep. It's just me now and my famous aching heart under the stars. My heart that keeps moving like a searchlight in its longing for the hearts of other people, who in a sense already live there in my heart and keep it turning.
Pandemic by Lynn Unger. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart. Reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live.
And now please join us in singing hymn number 1020, Woyaya.
Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Woyaya, 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 woyaya. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know within.
For closing, I simply repeat the last lines we heard. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. The postlude, Indodana, is an arrangement of a South African song performed by the University of Pretoria Camerata. The lyrics simply say that the Son of God has been crucified. Other words, such as hololo, signify weeping. The choir's raised arms are an appeal to heaven.